I'll come to you live from Abuja. That is Nigeria's capital. This morning, we're taking a look back I was just about we had that epoch-making event. But there are several elements in that inaugural speech. We have seen certain actions taken by this government under the leadership of Bola Ahmed Tinubu in line with the promises he had made prior to the election and in tandem with his inaugural speech elements. So one of them is agriculture, which is, of course, an integral part of the economy. I mean, take it or leave it. People have to be alive. They have to stay alive. They have to eat. For them to be ambitious, for them to pursue other concerns at whatever level, to whatever scale that may be. We want to take a look at agriculture in particular. We've seen transformation. We've seen the evolution of that space. We've seen how much government over time the earmarked. We've seen how much of efforts that has been made by way of several initiatives introduced to help boost agriculture, to help, if you like, put agriculture side by side oil and gas, even though we understand that that's an ongoing conversation. In fact, it's not surprising that every time you mention the term, as it were, let's move away from oil and gas, every time you talk about let's end this oil dependency system that we run, what people always talk about, or the first thing that comes to mind, is agriculture. But then we understand there are several challenges. We have seen the Anchor Borers program, for instance. We've seen the Fadama initiative, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. We've seen even the World Food Program, all right, coming in to say we want to assist, we want to be part of all of these commendable initiatives that Nigeria is pursuing. But then we see so much of lacuna in the efforts being made. And you're wondering, do we have, or have we seen commensurate output, commensurate if you like, outcome as against the amount of investments in billions of dollars, you know, other sorts of resources, seedlings, implements, technology, all right, that have been plunged into this very critical sector. This morning, I have a gentleman with me in the studio who would help us find some sense in this area, especially from the standpoint of what the challenges are, what this government under Bola Ahmed Tinubu has promised to do about them, and what that means for Nigeria going forward. Michael Adedotun Oke is the founder of Michael Adedotun Oke Foundation. It's an initiative that is focused on agriculture. He's also a freelance journalist.
That's great. That's great.
All right, great. I'm very interested in agriculture as a person. The only thing is my line of work would allow me next to no time, all right, to be committed to that. But you have spent a chunk of your life pursuing agric-related endeavors, right? So what do you have to tell us this morning as to where Nigeria is as a country today in terms of agriculture?
Listen to the overview of what you have said. Well, the led government of Tinubu have made a lot of promises, which I believe that people can key into. You that were thinking of having agricultural practices done. Yeah, actually what I felt for what he said is excellent indeed. But the green areas in which I look at it is saying that it's going to establish marketing board, storage to preserve food. Yeah, that is a good development. But the question though is that how will he go about doing that? So the first thing that is a lacuna is what are the policies that be on framework? Who are to champion that process? That's the first thing, which is a bit lacuna, in which you yourself, if you want to go into agriculture, be able to think twice that how are you going to key into it? So that's the first thing that look worrisome. You may have a good idea, but how are you going to implement that idea and follow it? Right. So the first thing which I expected is to have a good rapport with the farmers, call the stakeholders workshop to brainstorm on how to go about this. Then the other area which I felt concerned is the farmers. We have the peasant farmers. Presently, the peasant farmers are the ones doing a lot of the work. They have a scattered plantation and cultivation.
There's no coordination.
There is no coordination. So he needs to bring them on board and discuss and channel the way forward. What is the focus of them coming in as to help the farmers? Just like we said, relation of inputs. The farmers should be able to get inputs at the subsidized rate, timely, And the other area which I also look at, which he also explained, which it was a robust plan, the issue of marketing board. That one will even attract competition, whereby we'll be able to...
Oh, as it stands now, we don't have a marketing board?
Yeah, we don't. It was being enhanced before. So the marketing board is going to control the prices and also motivate the farmers to produce, whereby we have a lot of farmers will be interested in. But where they made on it is that before you think of having a marketing board, you need to empower the farmers to be able to produce in large quantities, whereby they will store it. And it did well, which when it was making announcement is that the issue of storage is going to build agricultural ops, whereby they're going to store the agricultural produce, whereby it also involve processing, and which is a robust plan. But how are you going to get there? That's a question mark on its own.
And I'm going to have to place a demand on you to maybe give us insight as to how we are going to get there. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask, all right, why is it that it appears we're not taking agriculture serious enough? I'll give you an example. Most times, government rolls out initiatives, whether state government or federal government, and the police. Some of them are core civil servants who are not into farming. They have no idea what farming is about. Some of them are people in private sector, like myself, for example. Imagine me being able to access certain funds, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, but I don't go to the farm. I don't even know where the farm is. I come to work as a broadcaster every day. So when we have that kind of situation, where do we pin the blame? Is it a problem with the benefactor, who in this case is either the state government or the federal government or some international partners, or is it a problem with the Nigerian factor, as we always call it?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just like you said, an example of Akombo's program is that let us have a bottom approach, not top approach.
Okay, bottom-up approach. Right? Okay.
We call the farmers together. This is what their needs. This is what their plans. Because if you do that, there will be a lot of sustainability. We have a lot of farmers association whereby you can call them on board, you discuss. Because most of those programs, which I was able to have knowledge about, is not from bottom-up approach. So that's the first area. Then where we are going, which I believe, which the president is thinking on, is to sustain the agricultural sector, whereby we have food in surplus, and we can also generate revenue. Because he was talking about we have a lot, whereby we're able to produce. So in essence is that the first issue is that call the farmers to brainstorm on that. Let them be top-bottom approach. Then also involve the agency, whereby the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, the agricultural sectors, all those institutions must be in place.
You know, I need to add quickly. Between 2016 and 2019, I had spoken with a handful of chairmen and presidents of different farmers associations, Rice Farmers Associations, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, blah, 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 blah. It will appear for the most part, it's more of politicking that goes on in those associations rather than being strategic as to how to grow grow the agri sector, leveraging the structures within this association. Is it not also the reality that because these associations are more politically inclined, more concerned about politics, that's also having impact?
Well, I will disagree, then also agree. Because if you look at the structures that brought all those associations, they have been registered. So they have the guidelines. But where I want to agree with you is that the leaders are having a lot of issues.
That are more personal, than they are even about the sector.
And some of them are able to bring politics into it, just like you said. But the whole goal is let them have a strategy, a road plan on how to do that. The mistake that have been done, just like you have made the right points. So there must be a research on how to navigate such problems, and which I believe that the present government has the political will to do that. They have all what it takes. And I also believe that he have the best people on the board to make the reality come to true. Because if you study his way of doing things, you know that he always have a plan, a road plan, which already conveyed to the country, already conveyed to the whole world. The question though is that how will he get to that place? That's what we need to be thinking about.
Now, in light of our concern about how the president and his team will get to that place, to use your words, in the area of agriculture, I'd like us to spend the next few minutes talking about policy. As it stands today, would you say from, where you stand, your personal assessment, that we already have enough policy framework to drive agriculture to that point where we want it to be, or do you see the need for us to rejig, or if you like, tweak the policy in such a way that we can, make them come up to speed with today's reality?
Yeah. There have to be a political will.
Okay.
We have a lot of policies.
Okay, we already have policies.
Those will be well split to the agricultural stakeholders. We have the banking sector is also there. Those who are into management, those who are into processing, those who are into exporting. So it's just the value chain. So what I'm saying is that let there be political will to implement those policies.
Now, when we talk about agriculture, that happens to be a heartbeat for me. I'm personally interested in value chain. What's your very candid assessment of our value chain as of today? Because I've spoken who have spent decades, 30, 40 years in the agri space, and they say our value chain is broken. Some say it is very weak. But in all, they generally agree that our value chain in the agri sector needs re-engineering, if you like. So what would you say about that?
You are quite right. The value chain in agriculture is so enormous, whereby each players, they play their own part. But what I also discovered that disjointed, they are not in curriculum orders.
Right.
And people are unable to see what are placed for them. Like when we talk about the value chain of cultivation, you may not be thinking of going farm, you may be thinking of producing the seeds, whereby you produce to the seed holders. Then the value chain of chemicals is also there, whereby you can be a marketer of chemicals. Then storages, then processing, then marketing. So this need to be obeyed to people to see. But the mentality of us now is that when we talk about agriculture, they are only talking about the peasant farmers. Even in the livestock sector, we have the dairy value chain, which can employ a lot of people. So what we are saying that you as a media also need to popularize all those value chains that is in agriculture. So the best way is that let the government unveil what they are thinking on those value chain and how those people, that the stakeholders can also key into that, which we will now look at the profitability of that, which you also mentioned of agriculture ops. Even where you lacking, which I also wanted to focus in the transportation of the agricultural sector. Nobody is care of that. It's also a value chain, whereby you convey the agricultural produce from the farm gate to the market. And that's why we also need to talk about the preservations and also the technologies in terms of extension. Even in the communication, it's also a value chain, whereby you use your smartphone to disseminate information. These are another area whereby people are not keen into it. So
I like the fact that you're taking this one step at a time and you're able to somehow just bring in all the very important in this conversation. You mentioned smartphone now. I recall that back in the day when we had Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan as president, we had Dr. Adesina, who is now the president of the African Development Bank, as Minister of Agriculture in this country. One of the very brilliant initiatives he had introduced then was how that farmers could be handed cell phones, or if you like smartphones, like you called it, all right, to drive productivity. And that really works from our own assessment, input distribution, our own assessment, fertilizers were distributed, very effectively, and so on and so forth. I don't know if that initiative still exists, but I'm just going to ask you straight up. Have we been able to so far leverage technology remarkably to drive agricultural development?
I may say no, because many things are happening in developed countries. When we talk about technology, you can usually use to market your agricultural produce. Then you can also use it for weather forecasts, whereby you get information. Then you can
weather forecast as it affects farming.
Farming. So when you know when to plant. Then if you want to market your produce, you can also use it to put it online to everybody see it. So we have not even keen to that really, which I also expect this government to look at it, because when we talk about extension services also, you can also use to disseminate information. Do a lot of research, have a database of the farmers store it and give information. Like you that want to invest, you need a maize farmer in maybe in Kano. You have a database. You just need to call. If you want to sell, you have the database. The poultry producers, all those things. And I believe that the present government will be able to also key into that.
That's great. So I need to talk to you about something else, but this time not the technology issue. But I want to talk to you about the area of agriculture that has to do with policy on the one hand, but more importantly, the area of agriculture that has to do with Nigerian graduates. I mean, those who graduate from Departments of Agriculture, if you like, Faculty of Agriculture. Some schools will say Faculty of Agriculture and Natural Resources and so on and so forth. But this country churns out at the least hundreds of thousands of agri graduates every year. Has that become a baggage, if you know what I mean, all right, in the agri space, or has it been a blessing? Because I'm wondering off the top of my head, the first person I interviewed here when we started broadcasting at Global Television is a consummated agropreneur, right? Incidentally, he studied English and literature.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many persons I've interviewed, I've spoken with, even off the records, all right, doing well in the agri space, who studied agricultural science. I don't know if that's a coincidence or is just what it is. But I would like you to talk to us quickly about how we can leverage the opportunities that are inherent, or if you like, the potential inherent in these graduates of agricultural sciences from universities. Are they just coming out with the papers? Do they have the requisite skill, hands-on skill to jump into the agri space and make a difference?
Yeah, they do. To shock you is that the people that are going to study agri is being reduced presently now.
Being reduced?
It's being reduced in most of the universities. So now, people did not see agriculture as a practical ways of earning income.
Okay.
That's another area which people will be able to see that there is a lot of money in agriculture. So what I was even expecting that the president will now do is that, which will make mention of the graduates in agricultural sector. Why can't you do like the feed operation?
Right.
Operation Feed the Nation.
OFN, right?
OFN, yeah. You can still introduce whereby you that is want to go into agriculture, you provide the enable environment, which when we talk about the land, then you soft loans, whereby you are marketplace where those who study agriculture can able to farm. Yeah, it's also in developed country, they also use them as extension, whereby they're able to disseminate information to rural farmers, whereby they will also be useful in that areas. When we talk about the economic growth of the country, they can also as an advisory role in respect to people that want to go into the agriculture. There is a lot of opportunities in agriculture. Just like the president talked about the livestock. You know, there is also a problem in the livestock system whereby there is a lot of cattle herdsmen going to the farms, which the president also promised that he's going to look at it, whereby there will be technology, whereby those who are rearing livestock will be able to embrace.
Yeah.
These people can also key into it because they have the knowledge. But in OSS, let us also see what those who study agriculture, they can come on board and have a consultation with the present government. This is where we want to go, then the roadmap on how to go it. And there must be a spot whereby this may be time-bound. But I see we having a good future in agricultural sector with the present government because of its utterances. We want to make agriculture as a limestone store in this country, and they also have a plan.
All right, so let's talk about young people now. A lot of young people are not interested in agriculture because they think it's not fashionable enough. For instance, you can't dress like this or even like this and go to the farm, for example. How do we bring about some, if you like, some sort of drastic or aggressive reorientation of the young people in such a way that they understand agriculture is not dirty line of work? All right. If anything, it's one that comes with dignity, all right, of labor as we know it, and then be able to get them in such a way that they can help to fast track development in that sector.
Yeah, the first thing which the government have to do in that area is that introducing the school farming.
School farming?
So yeah, we need to introduce it. Before it was school farming, you catch them young when they are still in school. That's the first aspect which I think too. Then the second aspect, just like I told you, those who are feeling this country, that the peasant farmers. So what can to have a scheme just like we have agricultural scheme, whereby and let people know that agriculture is along, so that they're able to explain to them this is the areas they need to go. And just like I say, empowerment of the farmers is very important. You need to empower them.
And in that regard, you say the approach should be bottom to top.
Our approach.
Not top to bottom.
Exactly.
All right. So that said, when we talk about agriculture, we always narrow it to farming, just going to the farm, planting yam, planting maize, and so on and so forth. We don't seem to have very expanded conversations around piggery, goatry, snailry, rabbitry, livestock kind of thing. And exactly. I mean, you go to some other parts of, some other climes, for example, you see a state is known for rearing goats, and sheep, for instance. And you get to find out that it has run across 4 generations, 5, 6 generations, and so on and so forth. Why
when we talk about forestry, we have trees, whereby there's also a value chain. Trees, whereby there are some trees that are medicinal. Some may have a lot of that. I think that it borders to the focus of the government. So just like you said, we need to take in an holistic way, multi-sectoral approach. We should not just focus on that areas. What other countries are doing is they do.
For sure. We have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate
has resorted to being resilient.
The National Assembly is something that must be gotten right.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASIS strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. So, Mike, I need to get right back to you, right? I'm sure you have heard about several incidents where Nigerian agric produce had been rejected abroad, food items, and so on and so forth, for issues around standardization, issues that are regulatory in nature generally. Just yesterday, my colleague and I, Kemi, we got talking here on the program of how that we are beginning to learn that certain Nigerians now take our food items, take our products from here to Ghana to repackage, give the impression that it is Ghana branded, just to be able to get them across to Europe, the US, and Australia, everywhere else, for instance. What does that say about where we are today in the agric sector?
Yeah, it's look bad, really, just like you may mention. Which the government still have to do a lot of that. They call it value addition.
Value addition,
right? That will make your products to be worthwhile. Then we also need to know what the world needs.
Yeah.
If you are producing, you need to understand the parameters, what's being entailed, what those people are demanding for. If you can understand that, you not tailor your lost is this value addition. When you have your products, what value addition can you do that to attract? And that value addition also linked into processing. To your own surprise, the government is also thinking of setting up a processing unit whereby you can be able to process your agricultural produce. So where we got it wrong is from the fundamental, whereby we don't understand what the world demands for. Then we don't have effective, whereby we need to process it to buy. It's also which you stress up. So we can brought it to limelight again. And it's look worrisome, whereby those who add something to their product, they get much better price and it look attractive.
Yeah, great.
So the government have to look at the control measures of
the
measures so that the farmers can also benefit from the international market.
Oh, great. So now we've been here talking for close to half an hour, and it will appear the whole thing revolves around the federal government. And then off the top of your head, you're wondering, where then is the place of state governments, for example? How much of impact?
I was just looking at, they have a meeting, they brought all the governors together, which
for the National Economic Council.
Which is a welcome development.
Right.
That is a consultation meeting. You should also go to the states to engineer them on what the government is trying to do so that they can be able to replicate it. You are correct. Apart from that, we also have the area council. whereby they need to tailor
like the local government councils in other states.
Council, if they can get that communication across to them, that would be better. It's just like I said, from bottom to top approach. Them they need to, they still have to go in. It's a motivational approach whereby you can attack it together because we have different interests. Interest, but then the research institutes also are very important. Kind of research, and the universities also are very important. I agree with you.
Let's talk about the international partners. I mean the development partners themselves, whose thematic area is basically agriculture. Are they really impressed with the investment they are making, with the partnerships they are striking with us as a country? Are they seeing more reasons to want to put their money where their mouth is, or they are beginning to backtrack a little to say, look, we need to reassess our commitments to these agri projects in Nigeria? Are they impressed? Are they fine with us?
Well, I may not say they are impressed. And we, the government, also have to have a meeting with them that they should not be discouraged. What happened in the previous, we were in a new government entirely now. We need to have a another lacuna which the government need to look at. Those who are in diaspora, they are playing a vital role. Some Nigerians are even doing well in the agricultural sector, so they need to unmark them and put them on board. We want to appreciate the development partner that have done a lot to us, but we also encourage them to do. Results may not be immediate, may be future-wise. Another area which I also want the government to come in, which I've said, is the issue of transportation.
Transportation, yes. How do you move product or produce from one end to another?
And there's some product that they may spoiled, damage, whereby we need refrigerators. So this is another area the government need to focus on, which they have other previous government have not heard about that. That is even my own which a little bit. And another area which is also input is machinery. What the youth can gain in is that if you look at the agricultural sector, whereby you believe that it's not just like you said, it's a dirty work. Well, it's not a dirty work, but you really look at it, whereby you can have a tractor. You can just walk into a tractorial company and say, I need a tractor to come and do my acres of land. Then in terms of, when we talk about agro products, when we talk about chemicals, you can easily get it. The government has to do that, diversify the inputs, really, just like you said, when additional was there, introduced.
There's a song.
Yeah, there are also, I will also shock you, have adulterated fertilizer also in some. And the high costs of fertilizer is, yes. Actually, it's also better to, we're having a government that is ready to do what needs to be done. Like
to change the narrative.
The narrative is that let the farmers get access to inputs. Just like you say, additional did the growth support for distribution using telephone something. So another area is that the government have to go to the market and able to track those people that are into that activities. And the farmers need to report to the necessary people that...
But is that reporting channel there?
We have that reporting channels.
So that again is something that we need to take care of.
Take care of. Like the Federal Ministry of Agri, which they are also mandatory to do that role. Which is also... Then the private sector also can also come into it.
To also be able to create those channels. I'd like you to talk to me quickly about GMOs. Are we adopting, and to what extent and in what ways are we adopting GMOs in Nigeria today?
Yeah, presently we are not. Some are, depends on the countries. For example, Nigerians are producing GMO, but in other countries it's not been accepted. But finally now, it's a little bit not being known, which I don't want to talk about. That.
Awareness, right?
Awareness is not being created. Because if you have that, it will be okay to know what's been expected.
All right. Who himself would probably say I'm a farmer, and he will give you all the statistics. He will talk to you about the different product lines and so on. I mean, the produce lines and so on and so forth. we've also seen agricultors who have never been farmers, and they don't even deny it, they don't pretend to have been farmers. Make any difference whether an agric minister or a commissioner for agriculture has been a farmer or not?
Yeah, the issue there, you want to talk about leadership, you must able to have the knowledge, basic knowledge of what you are into. The only difference which I see is that there is a little bit gap between the policyholder and the farmers. The gap is so wide so that you cannot be able to. But me, I would prefer someone that knows about agriculture. Those who knows about, look at President additional. Yeah, you give when
the current FDB president.
When he came on board, look at what he was able to achieve. So I prefer somebody that have the basic knowledge of agriculture. It will be able to cater. But the whole issue subject to the gap, whereby
so we need to close that gap.
We need to close. How do you close that gap? The government have to come to the level of the farmers. Also important.
Right. And you talked about that a lot.
Yeah. You communicate with the farmers. Let them have a dialogue. It's a two-way ways or two wins. You may be in the office that this is what. When you go to the grassroots, that
is a totally different kettle of fish.
So
right?
when they brought them on board, they're able to communicate what are you expecting us to do. Then the focus of the government is able to explain to them, so that they're able to
conversation. But I do understand that ultimately we need to bring policy makers, the farmers on the ground themselves, researchers,
and the investors,
and including, for example, Michael. I want to say a big thank you to you for coming on the program today. I've been talking with Michael Adedotun Okay. He's the founder of Michael Adedotun Okay Foundation.
How are you sure, sir? Keep quiet. The only area where Buhari defeats for that statement. But you say appointment.
So begin to wind down on the show. Take a look at the paper. Just give you an idea of what the news looks like this morning. It turns out we're beginning from the Nation newspaper. All right, with the big headline there: workers to get or so leaving petrol allowances. Federal government states propose execution effect. It says rebad. All right, still above the nameplate, there's one here that says, let's see that quickly for you now. OBLP tender 18,088 blood result sheets. That story is also on page 5. Under it, you have rising basic cost of living, push inflation to 22.41% on page 7. Okay, Naira closes at 702 to the dollar at an e-window. That's again is coming on the back of the fact that the Naira has now been floated. Deposit money banks now have some sort of less for the dollar. All right. Kidnap suspects kill farmer. It's a sad story on page 6 of today's Nation newspaper. Sanwo-Olu Buratai, others pay tribute to Abibatu Mogaji on page 6. All right. Abdulsalami Akonde Yakasai, Tinubu on track. President's decisions bold, says Sanusi. Recall that just yesterday the president had met with former head of state, General Abdulsalami, bank funds to implement CNG. What else? President, at State House. President appoints Ribadu, Edu, Alake, 5 other special advisors. We brought you that story on our global TV News Express yesterday. All right. Miss Abdulsalami Sanusi Akonde at State House, ex-head of state, pleads for people's understanding over subsidy removal. That's a very big story on page 5 of today's condition for exchange rates unification. Wants clarity on FX restrictions. Okay, that's a bit of business angle onto this day newspaper.